Hello and welcome back to our bullet journal tutorial. So we are going to work on July, and I have been inspired this month by our summer solstice. So we've just got through June the 20th, which was our summer solstice in the UK. So I'm feeling kind of, well, for a change, it's been sunny here. So I'm feeling the sunrise, sunset vibes with also a bit of a kind of retro 70s twist on it. So let's have a little look what we've done. So this is our theme this month. I actually did something different, so we're going to talk you through. I used a little stencil to create this, but I'll talk you through different ways you can do it. You can do it just with pen, with paint, with it, whichever you want to do. So let's have a little look at the template for now. We've got our cover page. Let's do it one by one. Our cover page, and as usual you have your separate plain month to view there, and then we've got our dailies. So weekly, sorry. As you can see, I've brought some kind of retro shapes using the colours. You can use whichever colours you want. I haven't actually got any Tombows as yet, but I will put some down in the comments. This lovely kind of sunburst, sunrise, sunset vibe going on here with some more kind of abstract shapes for our dailies. So as always with our dailies, it's just a little nod to something, a little bit of mindfulness to start your day if you are journaling in the morning. I like to set up a week in advance, so I tend to do my journal setup on a Sunday, but I love having the mindful colouring just a little bit every day. Habit tracker, again, some abstract shapes, and you've got space to put in all of your habits that you want to track for the month. And our mood tracker is a lovely sunrise or sunset. You can go whichever way you want in terms of colours. So all you'd need to choose here is 3 colours that you want to use and identify which one represents which mood. I usually put a key up here. I haven't got one on this mood tracker today, but I usually do good, okay, and not okay. That's our mood tracker. And then you've got some titles. If you want to create your own spread, but you really like my titling, then there's some extras for you to use there. So let's have a look at what I'm using in terms of tools. I've got a black Tombow fine liner, that's for our heading. I've also got our monthly stamp set. This is back available in our shop. Pair of scissors, because I'm going to show you how to do our little kind of printing technique. A mixing palette, I just use an old ramekin paintbrush, and of course some paints. So let's have a look at where we're going to start. So let me just make some room over here, and we've got a blank page to start with. So what I'm going to take you through today is how to use it as a stencil, but you can, if you want, just trace on the back and use this, trace it through and just colour it in as you wish. What I would like to do is use it as a kind of stencil technique, like a little printed graphic. I like how it's got kind of missed bits and pieces. It's not a perfect coloured square, so I like that, and I thought we could achieve that by doing printing. So I've got some really small scissors. Now I'm using scissors today. I actually have a Stanley knife or an art knife, which would be a lot easier, but I'm guessing not everybody has that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to do it with scissors, because you know that's easily readily available to you all. So all I'm going to do, these little scissors work really well because they're really sharp at the end, is I'm just going to cut out these bits that are coloured. I'm going to cut them out really carefully, and like I say, if you've got any nail scissors, I think that's basically what these are. They're ideal because they're really sharp, so you can pierce the paper and get in there. And they're really easy to kind of maneuver around small spaces, so you don't need any fancy materials if you don't have it. But if you do have a Stanley knife, you probably will find this a lot easier if we are using that. So I'm going to speed this up because you don't need to see me cutting all of these on the other side when it's all cut out. As you can see, it can get quite fiddly with the scissors, but we got there. There's a couple of places where it is ripped because I was a little bit heavy-handed, so I'm just going to sellotape those bits together and then we're good to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do before I go crazy and cover this in paint is I'm going to just trace where we've got our titling. Just need to find my pencil. Okay, so I'm just gonna trace in July just so I know where that's going. Okay, right then, so now we're just going to mix in our colour. So let's have a look. I'm using a mixture of different colours, a little bit of orange. And you want it to be, I'm actually using watercolours, but it might be better if you actually use thicker paints, but I just didn't have them to hand. I'm going to use a little bit of red just to make it quite punchy. Let's see. Yeah, it's quite vivid. Let's get a bit more, maybe a bit more yellow. I've been using these colours for lots of different things. They're quite mucky. So I'm using this wider brush, and you can use this brush to stipple as well, but I'm going to show you a couple of other things that we could use. We could use like old school, remember if you did this at primary school, sponges? I've got some old sponges that I bought and they just weren't, they were quite cheap and they weren't very good as kitchen sponges. So they got demoted to kind of craft sponges. So you could use sponges, you could use just a bit of kitchen towel as well. You could also, like I say, you could use a paintbrush, just make sure it's dry. So we've got our template here, and what we need to do is try and make sure that we keep this flat. The paint needs to go on top of the stencil and not underneath it, and that's why we need to make sure it's not too wet, so the paint needs to be quite thick. Let me go get a sponge and we can try that technique on this version. Okay, so I've got just a little bit of a kitchen sponge. I've also got some kitchen towel, so I'll show you how both look. Let's do the bottom bit with the sponge. So I'm just dipping in my sponge into my paint, or you can use your paintbrush to add the paint on. And then we're just going to really carefully hold the paper down. It needs to, you could actually sellotape the paper down if you're trying to keep it in place, but we're just going to dab, 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 dab. And that's our sponge technique, which I think could be quite cute because it's also giving a bit of a starbursty look, isn't it? Let's try with the paper towel. So I'm just going to tear up a bit of kitchen towel, get it into kind of like a stamper kind of shape, and again using my paintbrush I'm just going to add the paint onto there like that, and we're going to stipple again. So that one's not as heavy, it hasn't got as much paint, might need to go a bit heavier with the paint on that one. Soaks up a bit of the paint, so not as good. Oops, slipped a bit, try and keep it, that's why sticking it down would be handier. Right, so now I'm going to use the dry brush technique. So I'm just going to load my brush and dry it off a bit. So you can tell it's dry because the edges of the brush have kind of separated. By holding that down, and we're just going to stipple. So it's a little bit of a cleaner look. Again, not as heavy as the sponge. So I actually prefer the sponge, so I'm going to go back to my sponge for the rest. But you got the idea there of the different techniques we can use. And also we can just trace it and use our Tombow pens or felt tip pens or pencils. You don't have to do it this way. I just thought, as it was a bit of a retro design, we would doing some kind of like retro technique could be cute. Okay, so we're just gonna fill our space now with our sponging. It's very much like being at school and I'm loving it. I'm actually reading a book at the moment. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm really in my reading era, and I've kind of saved all of my books and my reviews. I'm also on Goodreads as well if anybody wants to join, but I'm reading a book in the minute called I Love You, I Love You, I Love You, and it's about growing up at school in the kind of early 2000s. Now, I was at school, I know I'm quite old. I finished school in the late 90s, like 1998 was my last school year, but I really identify with so many of the things that she's saying, and just little things about growing up and boys. So I went to an all-girls school, so we didn't have boys in school, and she's the same, so I'm really identifying with a lot of the things that she's saying. It's making me laugh. So let's peel this off and have a look what we've got. See, I love this. I actually love with the sponge how it's also given quite a faded effect. And you could use this idea if you wanted to use like fabric paints. You could do that onto a t-shirt as quite a cool little motif. I'd love it if anyone did that. Now, up to you if you wanted to go in and tidy up the edges. I'm not going to, because I just like the kind of retro vibe that's giving me. So what we're going to do now is come in with our Tombow pen, and we're going to just, oh, might be a bit wet though. Let's maybe cover it with something. Hang on. Let me just cover it with this because it's going to be a little bit wet, isn't it? So we're going to do our July header. Oh no, you see, stuck, it was a bit wet. Okay. And then I'm going to use my stamp, my trusty monthly stamp. I won't go back because I'm a perfectionist and I like how it's always the same size. When I used to do these months by hand, it used to annoy me when I did something slightly out of sync. So now it's all even and perfect. And I love it. So it's a really quick one, isn't it? But there we go, I love it. So whichever way you decide to do this, whether it be with the stamp or whether it just be tracing and filling and colouring it in, let me know. I'd love to see what you guys do with this one. And if anyone does make a t-shirt from it, I'd love to see that too, it would be amazing. I hope you have a really lovely July. I hope the sun stays out for us all, and I'll see you next time.